Star Wars The Last Jedi is one of the most spectacular yet controversial, surprisingly divisive films I've ever seen. In my opinion, it's a great movie. I enjoyed it. But I was kind of angry the first time I saw it. I looked over to my mom and I said, I'm pissed. I said, I'm pissed. Because I was so frustrated over the direction. I saw it again, and I love it. I didn't not love it the first time, I was just mad at it. But my anger has subsided. I realize, though, that even though there's tons and tons of complaints going around, that there's really, once you break it down, there's really only one big problem with The Last Jedi. One real problem that I think hasn't been brought up enough. It feels like the end, not the middle. And that's the problem. So why is it that this movie feels like it's not the middle of a trilogy, but the end of a trilogy? It feels more like the ending to The Force Awakens than the sequel, than the prequel to the next movie. Why? Well, it has a lot to do with the story arcs of this movie. A lot of the story arcs that either started in The Force Awakens or actually started in this movie end in this movie as well. It leaves the movie with a lack of direction. For example, Luke dying leaves us saying, well, what now? Right? Because his whole problem was the Jedi needed to end, and he wasn't over what happened between him and Kylo, and he had to get rid of Kylo, this, that, and the third. But all the growth he needs happens in this movie. And it ends in this movie as well, with his death. So now we're left up in the air, like, well, that just came and went. We didn't see any of Luke in the first movie. Well, if anything significant, that is. And now, he just comes and goes. So we're left up in the air. Rey was on a mission since the first movie to find her parents, find her identity. And eventually, she decided to actually become a Jedi and train with Luke. Well, guess what? That ends in this movie, right? She finds out that she's absolutely nobody. Her duality with Kylo Ren, right? The fight between hating him and having pity for him also ends in this movie. She realizes he's just completely bad. I don't feel bad for him anymore. I'm not going to try to redeem him anymore, right? So that's over, right? That arc ended. And even though Luke didn't go into Yoda-style training with her, he did give her 3 lessons. The third is a deleted scene. And she took the Jedi books with her from Mach 2. So there's no training left. There's nothing left. She knows enough to beat Kylo in a fight. We know that one, kind of. She definitely knows enough to beat the Praetorian Guards in a fight, right? She's strong enough and knowledgeable enough about the Force to save her friends whenever she needs to, right? We saw that she lifted all the rocks at the end of The Last Jedi to let all the resistance out. So what other growth do we need to see from Rey? I don't really need to see anything else from Rey. The only thing I can think of is, well, maybe she'll train some new people, but that would be awkward because, well, she hasn't done much growth herself. Even Finn and Poe's journeys end in this movie. Their story arcs, right? We didn't even know they had much of a story arc, but Poe had to learn how to be the proper kind of hero. So did Finn. They had to know how to not be so reckless. They had to be taught that by Leia and by Rose, right? How to be a good hero. That ended, right? They learned their lessons, right? There's no growth for anybody anymore, really, right? So we're kind of lost in direction. Like, where are we going here, right? Whose story arc still has room to go? Kylo, he has committed. He's committed to the dark side. He's not in the middle like we thought he was. He's done with that, right? So that his story arc, even though he's supreme leader now, his emotional journey is over. We already know where he is, right? He has no sympathy. He has a little bit of sympathy for his mom, cares nothing about the rest of his family or Rey. So what the hell are we looking from him now? Now it's just a matter of kind of peeking into his life and seeing what it's like for him to rule the First Order, which is cool and all, but nobody's clamoring to see that necessarily. Right? So he's going to have to be significantly powered up in the next movie for us to really buy him as the big bad now. That's the other problem. Where's the big bad now? Right? So even though Kylo's the leader of the First Order, we've seen him beat we've seen him beat, and he hasn't gotten necessarily any stronger. So what's going on here, right? My only hope in this matter is the Knights of Ren, right? Maybe the Knights of Ren will pose a big problem as well, and that'll give us a dynamic of evil that we can actually buy into. But Kylo's arc is essentially done. Luke's arc is obviously done. Rey's arc is pretty much done. Leia, unfortunately, is passed away in real life, so there's really nowhere to go with her. And even her little she didn't have much of an arc in these two movies, but her story kind of played itself out. They went all in with Leia in this movie, making her use the Force and whatnot. So now we have nowhere to go with Leia. Now we're just well, Leia did her thing in this movie. Leia was great in this movie. I don't really need to see anything else from Leia. So this is the real problem. Right? The story arc of a 3-movie trilogy ended in the second movie. Right? The third movie in this trilogy, the next movie, episode 9, is going to have to be pretty much different. It can't follow the storyline of the first two. There's really no storyline left. It has to make something up. It has to make something up. And when it comes to the characters that it already has, as far as Kylo and Rey, it's got to really be different. Otherwise, we're going to see the same thing. We've already seen Kylo go all over the place emotionally. So it's going to have to be really, really different. And the problem with it being really different is who is the person that's going to bring that to us? It's J.J. Abrams. Now, I like J.J. Abrams, but everybody knows he's a conservative when it comes to direction. He doesn't take leaps and bounds in the risk category, right? So that's why I'm not too excited for episode 9. That's what this problem means, right? The problem is it feels like the ending. And what does that mean? That means there's not nearly as much excitement for 9. And that's the big thing that really, I think, got to me when I saw this movie for the first time. It hit me and I went, damn, what now? I don't really care anymore. Everything ended in this movie. Even the Resistance, even the fight between the Resistance and the First Order, even though it's not over per se, the Resistance still is there in the First Order. In the beginning of this movie, they tell us the First Order has essentially scared the daylights out of everyone in the galaxy. Nobody wants to fight, right? Once, towards the end of this movie, when the Resistance calls for allies, nobody answers. What does that tell you? They have no fight left. There's no fight left. The First Order is essentially taken over. Now, maybe they won't do a good job at completely taking over with Kylo at the realm, but that's a maybe. Who knows? That's not that interesting, right? That's just going into politics, right? But the Resistance is so tiny, right? That right now, with just, 20, 30 people left at the end of Star Wars: The Last Jedi, at the end of that in that Rebel base, it was 20, 30 people, right? They're so small. There's no way that they can put up a real fight, and nor do we think that they should. At this point, these guys should just duck and hide and try to carve out their own corner of the galaxy with their closest friends and family and just live it out. Right? So, this is what I think is the biggest problem with this movie. And really, to be honest with you guys, I think it's the only problem with this movie. People are going to complain about Luke and where he went. But at the end of the day, you can only judge a movie for what it is. You can't judge a movie for what you wanted it to be, right? And if you just look at this movie for what it is, it feels like an ending. It seems like an ending. Story arcs end. Things end in this movie that essentially should continue, right? Or would make sense to continue considering there's a guaranteed another movie coming. If we did not know that episode 9 was coming, I think this is a fantastic ending to the trilogy. The way Luke goes out at the end. Fantastic. The only reason why people are pissed about it is because there's another movie coming, right? And we didn't see much of him in the last movie, right? But if we knew that this was the last movie, if this was episode 9, a lot more people would be happy with it, right? A lot more people would be happy with it. But it's not, and that's the problem. It feels like episode 9, but it's not episode 9. Rian Johnson, what did you do?
All right. Okay.